every business has an operating system. It's just whether or not they're intentional about it, right? Things get done a certain way, and that's how you operate.
Hi everyone, I'm Lori Gama. Welcome to the Pathfinder podcast, where you can get inspired to go full-time with your passion, or if you already own a business, to take it to the next level. And my guest today is Scott Warner. Thank you so much for being here, Scott.
Awesome to be here. I am tickled.
I want to read this really impressive introduction about you before I get to all the juicy questions, so our viewers know a little bit more about you.
Awesome.
Okay. So Scott Warner, co-owner of Connecting Point with his brother Andy, is a Greeley native and successful local business owner. Their father, Ted Warner, founded the company in 1982, transitioning it to his sons in 2019. Celebrating its 41st year, Connecting Point is recognized nationally as a leading managed IT and cybersecurity service provider. Serving small to medium businesses in Colorado and Southern Wyoming, the company is known for its pioneering role in the IT sector. Active for years in the Greeley and Northern Colorado community, Scott serves on local nonprofit boards and committees. A former collegiate athlete, he also enjoys a variety of sports like golf, tennis, pickle-ball, and skiing, to name a few. On top of small business ownership, Scott is a husband to his wife of 12 years and a father of 2 daughters, 6 and 2.
That's the real job.
Yeah.
6 and 2.
Right. The sweet ages.
Yeah.
Really sweet.
Yeah.
So let's go way back, Scott. You went to Purdue, met Mallory. What made you decide to come back to Greeley in Northern Colorado and invest all into our community?
Well, it was funny because growing up, I never wanted to be a part of a small business, or I should say a family business, because my dad ran Connecting Point from the time I was a baby, and so I didn't think that was for me. But what was interesting was that as I dug into what I wanted to do with my career and where I felt like I could build a home and a network, Greeley was more and more of a, not just a relevant opportunity, but it was an opportune situation to come in and get exposure and experience. And my dad was creative and said, "Look, why don't you come back, and I'll give you an opportunity to kind of see what's out there through the lens of Connecting Point and our business, and create some separation between you and I, and so that you don't feel like you're working with your dad." And so it felt like a great opportunity to do so. But once again, it wasn't something that I had architected from the beginning. Mm-hmm. So I just knew that being back in Colorado was something that I wanted to do after kind of experiencing as a kid.
Right. And so you went into the business working for the business.
Yep.
And eventually you and your brothers bought the business.
Yep.
And so you transitioned from working in it to actually owning it.
Yep.
So what was that like?
Great question. And I think there's some interesting parallels between you grow up in Greeley, you don't understand or appreciate what you have, you move on, and then realize, wow, what was there was really special. Mm-hmm. I actually equate that to my experience working in the business prior to owning the business. And so my brother Andy and I, like I said, we both didn't have aspirations to work for the family business, but the dynamic and the opportunity of owning your own business is special, right? You have the ability to influence people and communities. You have the ability to build something special and put your mark on something. A lot of the Connecting Point story leads back to legacy and how my dad was just very intentional about getting the organization to a spot that could be transitioned and to pass on legacy. But working at the business, then moving back into owning it was, like I said, it's a very different universe where you go, okay, great. Well, I know what we do. I know how we do it. I know what's important, why. But then when it's your job to foster and move the organization forward, it's a different layer of responsibility. It adds a different aspect of intentionality in what you do and how you do it. It's not, I don't want to say burden, but there's weight to owning a business. You have people and clients and a community that need you to be successful.
Right.
Because you fill a need, and so that's a different weight that you don't experience or
Right.
feel when you're executing on a job inside of the company versus owning it.
With that power comes great responsibility, right?
That's like Spider-Man, right?
Yep. There you go, Spider-Man.
We are not Spider-Man, but we try hard to make a difference.
Right. So you guys took over in 2019
Yep.
officially.
Yep.
And then what happened a year later?
What happened in 2020? The interesting part about taking over the business was, and it always is this way, what is going to happen? What lays in front of you? It's the unknown, right? So when the pandemic started, we were in the midst of transition, and my dad, once again, I give him a lot of credit in being flexible and open to kind of his transition as a business owner. After 38 years of running a business, to be open and dynamic around how does a business transition, because that's intricate in itself.
It is.
But the pandemic really kind of shaped how that transition went, because he went from owning and operating the business to kind of giving that ownership structure back to his family, to his sons. And we transitioned the business inside of about 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
But the shift in how people work and how employees engaged in their day-to-day jobs and where they were geographically, and the dynamic of the pandemic really forced us to do things differently. Mm-hmm. And I think just the timing and transition of roles and responsibilities helped fuel that and make that a smooth process.
Right. With the younger generation, during a world shift like that, I think that came in handy for you guys.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree, and I think there's a battery. I think when you think about your battery as a professional, what motivates you, what exhausts you. I think there was maybe a shift in my dad's battery of like, what do I want to? How do I want to take this on? And so I think he was very happy to say, okay, guys, time for you to tackle your first big business challenge. Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, it was fantastic. I think we were able to play an important role in how people operated inside of their organizations from a technology perspective through the pandemic, and we were able to be dynamic in how to get them the tools and the security that they needed to run their organizations and engage their team members from wherever they were. Mm-hmm. And actually, the way we approach our client engagements, our clients weren't that far off from being able to shift, which was a good story in and of itself. So. But the timing was interesting.
Yeah, really interesting. Before I ask you more questions about Connecting Point itself, I'd love to get your opinion about what do you think makes Greeley so special, as a community to live, work, and play in? A
layered question with a layered answer, and I think the reality just kind of lies in what I said to start. It's a big, small town. And I think I told you in meetings past that my in-laws are from Wisconsin, and they'll come out, and Mallory's a transplant. My wife Mallory's a transplant. So when my in-laws come out and we go out for dinner or we go to the grocery store, I don't think you ever don't run into someone you know.
Right.
And so
it happened here on your way in, right?
Right. You're always connected with the people that you kind of live, work, and play around, right? And so I think that's such a special and unique quality about Greeley in and of itself. But yeah, I think the cool part about our community is that we are large enough now to where there are significant and impactful organizations in our community that do incredible things. And that's why I think this podcast is so cool, because you're highlighting just some of the gems of our community and how they do what they do and the impact they have and their vision for kind of creating, just creating, right? And so I think that's what's special about Greeley, is that you now have these just cornerstones, if you will. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that Connecting Point is a cornerstone. I would say we are a player in the community, and I would hope that we become more and more impactful. But if I think about my father and some of the leaders in our community and the forefathers of Greeley itself, man, they've done some incredible things. And so it's been an honor to try and carry that forward and make an impact in the community.
How do you think, like, this studio we're in today is Link Library and Innovation Center, and also the Greeley Area Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about just each of those things. I myself, I feel so grateful that we have this innovation. It really is an innovation center, and it's not just the recording studio where you can record a YouTube podcast, an audio podcast. There's a workshop. There's so many maker spaces. You can weave. You can do so many things. I could talk for hours about it. And then the Greeley Area Chamber. You've been involved for years, and thank you for being involved with the Greeley Area Chamber. I'm a member, investor, and I love them there as well. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. I think the Greeley Area Chamber itself is just such a great organization. They have done a measurable work over the last 3 to 5 years. I mean, the amount of work that they have done to kind of bolster support in the community and to develop business relationships and legislative impact and just influence and impact local, kind of just local and government affair type stuff. It's incredible. And so if you ever walk over to the Greeley Chamber office, they're a small but mighty group of folks. They are incredible. So, and I've always felt a passion for engaging that level because, once again, growing up in the community, having a business here in Greeley and Northern Colorado, I truly believe that the chamber it kind of acts as the lifeblood for businesses. And so if you have a healthy chamber, I think it enables a healthy kind of business marketplace, because it's a way to kind of galvanize the resource that exists in the community. And if you can multiply relationship and engagement and skills and resource, you have something really special.
Right.
So I think that's what's so cool. It's not just that the chamber does A, B, C, D. It's that they understand the different layers and facets of value that exist in the community. And that's where I think they've done a great job, is saying we need to get these people together and kind of multiply their impact. And I think that's been the secret sauce to the chamber here locally over the last handful of years. So testament to them for sure. Yeah. And I've just been along for the ride, and it's been a fun part to play. So. Well,
yeah, Jamie and her team, they also helped a lot during the pandemic with businesses that were used to foot traffic and retail and restaurants and distilleries and all that. Yeah. And so they had to pitch in there and think of new ideas.
Yeah, and I think that was really cool to watch, was just the creativity. And that's what, when we got involved in running the business, I mean, we had to have creativity to go to market to say, how are we going to do what we do? And that was a fascinating operation that they kind of, and we had really good examples of how to do it across the country even, but you have to do it. You have to have the hands and the feet and the game plan to execute. And they did such a good job just pulling together plans and just kind of impact, even from the organization of establishing local kind of private grants to help people stay on their feet. It was incredible to watch. Yeah. Like I said, to be a part of was definitely a privilege. So
thank you for helping them. You were the chairman, weren't you, at that time? Chairman of the board?
Yeah, there was some interesting dynamic with terms and term lengths, and so I was the board chair for 1 year, and it may have felt like more than 1 year, but it was I still think I learned far more in that role than I gave. So I feel forever indebted to the chamber to feel and find ways to give back and to stay in touch, because man, was it a life-giving experience. So
that's awesome. So comparing like when your dad started the business, 1980s, 90s, even the early 2000s to mid 2000s, and through the recession, compared, even all of that was the world was changing dramatically, but yet when you guys took over, it really changed.
Yeah.
So what specific things did you have to change yourselves in order to navigate, once we got the pandemic behind us, like, are there any new challenges?
Well, thankfully, in the IT space, change is, to say it's constant is an understatement.
Right.
It evolves so quickly, and the organization itself has been through some significant just evolutions, just from being a product retailer, reseller, to being kind of more of a network integrator. When we started, we were a retail computer store. And so fast forwarding down the road to really truly just being a business to business provider of IT services and cybersecurity. And, really that's the only way we engage is business to business and kind of in a holistic relationship perspective. And when you think of it from that lens, what's changed the most is how businesses leverage technology. There were meetings that I would have when I first got to Connecting Point, and someone across the table, when I was asking about what they did, they would very truly say, we just don't lean on technology that much. That was not an abnormal thing to say. There is no business that says anymore, I don't really need technology.
Right.
So just the absorption and adoption of IT has become just a game changer. And then you layer on the reality that the way someone secures their business from a technology perspective really impacts the well-being of their team, the well-being of their asset in a business, and it really dictates who they are and how they go to market. There are just way too many facets of IT anymore to not have some semblance of a partner at the table with you. And I think back in the day, we were maybe more viewed as like a vendor or a place to go to get something that someone needed kind of in an instance. Whereas today we are much more of a at the table business partner. And my dad said this all the time, and I'll never forget. He said, well, Scott, he goes, I firmly believe that every company needs a banker, a CPA, an attorney, and an insurance person to make sure that they have their ducks in a row. He goes, I believe firmly that the IT partner will be a core seat at the table in the near future. And he was right.
Yeah.
And anymore, it's not just about how do I get a quick fix from an IT perspective. It's how do I find a relationship and a partner that I can lean on to build my business through technology. And I think that's been the biggest shift, is that
Right.
business through technology. It's not just kind of plug and play anymore. So
Right. As the leader in your company, you've got to make sure that your people are trained all the time. You're getting recertified. You have a great company culture there. Let's talk a bit about like a tool that helps you. It's called the EOS system.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I read the book Traction, so
Cool.
I know a bit about it. So, but tell
Yeah.
our viewers about that and how
Yeah.
it helps you guys.
Yeah, no, every business has an operating system. It's just whether or not they're intentional about it, right? Things get done a certain way, and that's how you operate. For us, we were trying to find a consistent, repeatable, kind of proven way to move our business from point A to point B to point C. And I think the reality is, in business, what gets you from point A to point B certainly doesn't guarantee you to get from B to C or beyond. And so for us, Traction, the EOS process, was what we elected to kind of engage that.
And EOS stands for?
Yeah, thanks. The Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Right.
Yep. So for us, it was kind of a no-brainer. We tried to implement it when I was working with my dad still. This was before my brother got into the business. So my brother came in about 7 years ago. So before he got to Connecting Point, we were looking at how do we move the needle? One of the things that's so important about Traction is starting with a 10-year vision. Like, where do you want to be? What are the drivers, and what are you going to look like in 10 years? And my dad didn't have 10 years. He had like 3. And so we kind of put that discussion on hold. And then when we bought the business, we said, all right, it's time. We're going to look at where we want to be, how we're going to get there, and what are the core kind of building blocks and the metrics and the kind of the X's and O's. And we were able to kind of commit to that and then really distill that down into a more holistic vision for our team. And I think that's what kind of creates the difference in leveraging something like EOS.
Perfect. I love that advice. And also your mission statement, credit your dad for having a mission
Yeah.
statement in the first place.
Yeah.
I'm sure it evolved over the years, but when you guys took over, how did that change?
Yeah, and I think the reality of our kind of purpose statement or mission statement when my dad ran the organization was that, I mean, we existed to help our clients, accomplish their business initiatives, which is by itself not a bad thing. I think it was a good thing, and I think it wasn't about technology. There was nothing in our previous mission statement about technology. But as we sat down and really looked at it, I mean, it was much more than just the business side of things, our job anymore. So our purpose statement is that we exist, so we leverage our God-given time, talent, and treasure to enable people and businesses and communities to thrive. And I think that's a huge part of where we have to have our mindset when we show up to work every day. It's not just about the business. It's what is and once again, this is kind of a part of the community experience and the what I've learned watching great leaders here in our market. But it's not just about the business that you run and the things that you do to accomplish business objectives. It's really, how do you pour into your people? How do you influence your clients, kind of their ecosystems? And then how do you really turn that vehicle of business around and influence the communities that you serve? And I think if you're doing what you can, you have such a robust mechanism to influence people in more than just, you show up to work and we try and do a good job and we give each other a high five at the end of the day and go home. And I think that's where I've learned from a legacy perspective that we have much more responsibility to kind of build a plan around that. So.
Right. Can you share with us an example of, I'm sure there's been multiple times when you and your team saved the client from like losing massive amounts of money and having huge amounts of heartache because they fell for a phishing tactic in an email or something like that. Can you share?
Yeah, I mean, without getting too specific, right. I mean, now I will say, I think that's the difference in IT, right? I mean, no business owner that runs an IT organization can sit in front of someone and say, we're going to make sure nothing ever happens to you. That's just not reality. What we have to be able to do is provide a layered approach to protecting someone's organization and their business and their people if and when something happens. And we have tools in place today that are very robust. And so we had an instance where someone surrendered some credentials. When we dug into it, it was a very elegant phishing email, and they surrendered their credentials. And then in a roundabout way, they did the right thing. They had a couple of forms of authentication in place to protect themselves, but they fell for that as well. And they were in a position where their system was compromised to a bad actor. Well, our tool set was able to report in and say, we see what's happening. We understand the tactics being used. We're going to isolate the system, and we're going to notify the IT company. It's kind of our outsourced kind of security threat ops team. Said, all right, we see what's going on. We're going to escalate to this issue to Connecting Point for resolution or remediation. And it was the CEO of a fairly large financial organization. And so those kinds of tactics are used constantly. Yeah. And can I tell you what the dollar amount was that they would have saved? Absolutely not, but I can assure you it wasn't small.
I bet.
Right. So those are the day in and day out things that we have to get our arms around, and those tactics are changing and the tools are changing, and the risk is going up every day. So
it's a good thing you had his back, because that's basically what it boils down to. Yeah. I mean, there's so much involved, but it must be reassuring for clients to have you guys on their side.
Well, that's our hope. That's our hope, is that people understand, our job is to help them understand what good looks like, right? It's not just it's not just to be the silent partner in the background and just give everyone the thumbs up from across the video conference meeting every now and then. We have to be a front and center partner and make sure we help them understand, here's the reality of the industry, here's the risk you take on as a business, and here's kind of what good looks like, and how do we create a journey for you guys to get through it all.
Right.
It's complex, and it's not one size fits all. I wish it was. It'd be a lot easier.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely not one size fits all.
Yeah. Now, share with us a particularly difficult time it was to be a business owner, because it's really hard to balance all the balls in life, especially when you're a leader in your business.
Yeah.
Can you share with us maybe a particularly difficult time?
Been through a difficult season of life. This past year has been actually a fairly difficult season of life with some family health stuff, and with little kids and running a business, and and trying to be a husband and a business owner, and to my brother a partner. I think it's difficult, and it's tough to balance the priorities sometimes. And we all only have 24 hours a day. But what really has come out as a common theme, and just a constant through this past season, has been, man, how important it is to have people that you trust in your organization, the people who you've built relationship with, and the people that you can lean on, and the people that you can kind of offload to. And it's hard. Not every organization has that, maybe that layer of resource, but if you need it, and as we grow our businesses and we work with our team members, I think you start to understand how amazing your people are and how willing they are to kind of step up and share the load. And I think as business owners, sometimes we shoulder everything and go, no, I'm going to do this because it's my business, and I'm going to take the responsibility. But there are people, really, really good people that you hire and work with every day, that are capable, that have phenomenal intentions that you can count on and lean on. And I think that is just something a business owner needs to kind of remember in my last season of life, that we're still trying to get out of a little bit. It would have been really easy for me to get overwhelmed and underwater, but it almost forced me to say, I gotta offload things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lesson that I learned, and it's not an easy one to learn. And I wish I didn't have to, but
Right.
Turned out to be a really good thing.
Well, kudos to you having trained your team and having such a great company culture, and like you said, the relationships over the years, and just having the employees that have been with you for so many years. But really, it's actually okay that your business can run without you. It should be able to run without you, and not that we want it to, because we want you down there, but it's good that you were able to do that.
Yeah. No, I think that is the reality, is that it's a little bit from both sides of that fence. I mean, it's important to be an engaged, I think to be an engaged owner, to be part of the overall solution that gets delivered to your customer. But I think that role changes, and I think it has to, if you're trying to grow and evolve in how you do what you do. You have to be willing and flexible for your role to change a little bit. And once again, there's no manual for that. I think you just have to understand who you are and what your business looks like to be able to evolve into that. But
Yeah.
unfortunately for me, some of it's been forced. So I guess I can't say that it just hit me like a lightning bolt and said, oh, I got to do this. It was a little bit forced. So sometimes in life that works out okay too.
Right. Just for a season. Yeah.
Just for a season.
Right. How did you handle financial aspects during difficult times?
Yeah, no, and I think this just boils back down to having great people involved and understanding kind of strengths and weaknesses. I would say that thankfully, Connecting Point has been blessed to be a healthy run and operated organization for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so, but I think the reality of that is just we've had very strong financial control. And I think that is very helpful when you have the ability to, number one, forecast, right? To say, What is our business model, and how do we distill that down into something that we can plan and prepare for? So I think we've done a really good job saying these are the core drivers financially that run our organization, and here's how they can be influenced and impacted. But I also would say that, thankfully, my brother is a CPA by trade, so we have and my dad was very skilled in from a financial control aspect, but just being able to get down to the nitty gritty of saying, even as a business grows and has opportunity, you still have to be. It's this dichotomy of being frugal, but also investing and being generous where you can, right? Like some frugality affords you the ability to be, live abundantly, if you will. So to be able to give back effectively or to invest in training or people, you have to be really mindful of where you're at financially. And I think that's been fun to watch, and I've definitely learned lessons myself as a business owner watching talented financial people do what they do well. So
Absolutely. Always know your numbers.
yeah, always know your numbers. Yep.
Yeah. Your company contributes a lot to local nonprofits.
Yeah.
I sit on the board of directors with United Way of Weld County, and
Yeah.
thank you and Connecting Point for all you do.
Yeah.
How important do you think it is for businesses to do that, to give back to the community?
Yeah, I think it's vital, right? I think that's the good stuff, and thank you for your service to the United Way here in Weld County. I think it's incredible to watch organizations serve in their capacity, and United Way is one of those specifically that has just such an incredible reach. But giving back was something that was always just a really important part of my mom and dad's legacy of how do they do what they do. And so I just watched it. So it was that's just what you do, right? You give back where you can and where it makes sense. And you can't do everything for everybody, but I think you have to be intentional about where can you give and how can you have the most impact. With us, it's kind of cool because you can't do this with every client, but there are certain opportunities where what we do actually can be of service to a client, a nonprofit specifically, where we can provide some in-kind services, but we also can be creative with how do we give to certain projects that may not be attainable if we hadn't done that. And so I think half of giving back is understanding where you have capacity to give. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important for anybody to understand, is it's not just about, oh, I got to give. You have to really understand what is your capacity to give and what are the gifts that you have. Because whether you run a business or, you have a talent, I think everyone has the capacity to give back and be impactful. And I think when you do that, I don't think we fully understand where the impact will be realized when you give. But for us, I think that was a really important part of just continuing on a legacy of my parents. And we've been very fortunate to be kind of intentional and just engaged in the process of giving back to our community. And I would say that some of the most impactful experiences our people have at Connecting Point are when they've been able to be a part of the giving back experience, whether it's a habitat build or being a part of a United Way, fundraising operation, or just being present at a community event. I think those are great things that we can help.
And that trickles down because as your employees do those things, their children see them doing that, and so they're going to grow up and ideally, hopefully, do the same thing.
Yeah, I would hope so, and I think that's a really kind of cool part about giving is I think it's generational. I think it's a learned behavior, mm-hmm. And so giving isn't easy, right? I mean, it's not always easy to start, mm-hmm. but I don't think many people ever give of their time or their treasure or their talent and then turn around and go, man, I really shouldn't have done that. I think it's
right.
So yeah. I think that's what's cool about it is it's a learned behavior, and
it is.
I think we get better as we get older.
Yes, exactly. And as we become more seasoned mm-hmm. in leading our businesses, because for many years, I've been in business 29 years now, and it took
Congrats.
a while.
That's awesome.
Thank you. It took a while to get to the point to even be able to give back.
Yeah.
So I'm just really grateful that I can. And I encourage other business owners that if they're not already doing that to, get yourselves into the Small Business Development Center so they can help you. because their services are free, so that they can get to the point where they're able to give back.
Yeah, I was talking with Lisa Hudson from the SBDC a couple weekends ago, and she mentioned that last year they served more businesses, I think, than they had in the last like 7 or 8 years.
Wow.
So their capacity, just as an aside, their capacity to help small businesses is incredible.
It is.
But
yeah,
it was fascinating.
yeah, it is. Before we close, I'd love to find out, who is your ideal client?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think for us, we have been very intentional over the years, like I said, not to just engage in a relationship where we just help someone from a singular aspect. For us, an ideal client looks like a small to medium-sized business that has somewhere between 15 people, users, on up to about 100. And they're typically located within about 100 miles of Greeley. We're a regional company, so it's interesting. We do work in Greeley, but we actually have a fairly diverse portfolio of clients outside of Greeley. And so for us, it's that size, stature of a company, but they really need to be an organization that values technology, right? It's not someone who's looking to just, cut costs. They really need to be viewing IT as a conduit for their business to grow. And that kind of mentality around IT utilization allows us as a partner to come in and help them implement a model and a formula for growing their technology, securing it, and helping them over time. So that 15 users to 100 users kind of in our geography is really kind of where we end up playing.
Good. And before I ask you my last question, where can folks find you?
Yeah, so if people want to find us, we have a website at www.cpcolorado.com, or you can find us on LinkedIn. You can find my profile or the Connecting Point profile on LinkedIn, and follow us, or just kind of follow my content that I publish through our social media channels, Facebook as well. But I'd say a lot of our content flows through LinkedIn as a way to kind of go give back in a thought leadership capacity.
I really enjoy your LinkedIn posts.
Thanks.
As you said, thought leadership is I love that, because you are giving really great advice and you're asking thoughtful questions. So I love following you on LinkedIn. Yeah,
there's a great book out there called The Go-Giver. If you've never read it, go read it. It's a fantastic book, short book, but tons of nuggets. But I try really hard to be a go-giver, and I think that is an important part of once again, relationship drives lots in business, especially small business, and so being able to kind of contribute and identify areas where you can go give is great. By the way, kudos to you for being a go-giver in this capacity. This is awesome. Thank you for letting me be a part of the conversation, and I hope that this is a great kind of toolkit for you as you move forward.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, here's my one last question.
Okay.
So if you could get in a time machine and go back to who you were at the age of 20, 23, with all the knowledge you have now, what would you tell 23-year-old Scott?
Oof. I would say that patience is a very, very important lesson to be learned and adopted. And I say that because I think there is a semblance, especially as you're growing in your professional skills and your professional journey, there's always this desire to just get there faster. And I mean, I've been at Connecting Point almost 16 years now, which is crazy.
Congratulations.
But I think being patient and understanding that there is process to be learned, and there's value in the journey, in the good stuff and the bad stuff, and just being able to be patient and experience that stuff and learn from it is something that I would tell myself, because I can't tell you how many nights that I had laying in bed staring at the ceiling saying, man, I wish this would be over faster. I wish I could get here faster. And if that if that request would have been granted, I would have missed a lot of experience and wisdom in the process. So, patience.
Patience. Awesome. Thank you so much, Scott. This was really amazing. You shared so many nuggets of wisdom, and I hope you'll come back again.
Hey, you ask me, I'm in. This is awesome. So thank you very much.
Thank you.